So dear friends, today we are organizing an interactive session on a very emerging area of anti-defection law. And considering the recent political developments going on particularly in the state of Maharashtra, I think many people are curious to know what this law is there, what are the provisions, what are the consequences of this defection, anti-defection. And considering all these developments, we thought it fit that to organize a discussion that too with the postgraduate students of Department of Law of University of Savitribai Phule University of Pune. And I think that they will enlighten. Everybody knows that there is anti-defection law. Everybody knows that it is included in the 10th schedule of the Constitution. Then any member of Parliament or the MLA voluntarily leaves that particular membership or goes against the party, he can be disqualified. Speaker of the House or the Parliament, as the case may be, can disqualify that particular member. All these provisions are there, but the detailed provisions, detailed consequences, their comments, what are the suggestions, I think that will be the main agenda of this brief interactive discussion with and that to students of the PG students of a very prestigious university, that is Savitribai Phule Pune University. So I will start with the discussion. I will start with this student. Just brief us important provisions of the anti-defection law.
So if I talk about the anti-defection law, the basic motto of the anti-defection law was to remove the defection. But when this law passed in the year 1985 by the 52nd Amendment, it was put in the Schedule 10 basically. And this law, when it was passed, that time only the defection more and more have started in our country. If you look into the provisions of the anti-defection law, the Para 2 talks about the voluntary. Voluntary means what? The Supreme Court should interpret this word properly, voluntary resignation. Resignation is different thing, voluntary is different thing. If you look the next para basically, it talks about what the whip. If the person is, the main leader of the party is saying that you have to vote against this thing only, but there is no freedom of speech and expression to the elected representative. He cannot give his opinion. There is one more violation over there. Then if you look into the third and fourth, the splits and merges, which protects the defection. If the 2/3 members moves, then there is no defection. But 1 or 2 members moves in a party, if you see there, then that there is a defection. That can also look into in a defection law. The next provision is about the anti-defection law for the independent members and nominated members. Nominated members can have 6 months. 6 months is there for them. If they join any party, then they cannot be defected. But in independent members, if they join any party, they can be defected. There is a principle equality gets violated if you see. I'm sharing my personal opinions. Then there is the speaker's decision. The speaker's decision is final. But if Supreme Court have interpreted this also in the case of Kyoto Holland versus Jachuli case, that there is a judicial review. Speaker decision is not final, there is a judicial review. Recently we saw in the Karnataka case also. Then one more thing is that about this law is about, thanks.
Now I am just coming to another student of law. What do you feel about who should be the authority to take the decision regarding disqualification of a particular member?
Yeah, presently the speaker takes the decision with regard to the disqualification, and that decision is subject to the Supreme Court's or the High Court's approval. But there should be an independent body to look into the matters of the disqualification, because speaker holds his office as long as he is in the good books of the ruling party. So we need an independent commission or a committee to look into the disqualification, and more importantly we need to lay down a strict procedure as to the time, within what time the resignation should be accepted, and what are the reasons for disqualification. That's it.
Do you have any suggestion regarding this anti-defection law?
So considering all the pros that my prior speakers have told about, one should also look into this factor that the freedom of a legislator to express his opinions is not safeguarded when the party, like his opinion is contrary to whatever the party's policy is. So there have to be certain safeguards in the anti-defection law whenever a person or a leader is dissenting to the party's policy. So this is another safeguard that is necessary.
Do you feel this anti-defection law is undemocratic? Please.
I personally think that democracy is something which is by the people, for the people, and of the people, which has been a rut, sort of a very monotonous statement, but at the same time it actually represents the people, because in a country wherein we have majority of the people still looking for literacy rates higher, wherein we just have 70% of the male population which is literate and around 60% of the female population which is literate, and we still have a definition of literates as a person who can just read, write. And somebody has actually said that it's not just about reading, writing, but it's about learn, unlearn and relearn. In that kind of a democracy, when we have so many people illiterates using taxpayers' money and the entire process of election, which is a very big, huge democratic process, if we do not allow the representatives to choose which party they want to defect to, is undemocratic.
Continuing on the undemocratic part of it, out here every time we've seen instances where parties run to the Supreme Court or the High Court, considering that the 10th schedule has given a lot of scope for judicial interpretation in that, and there exists no umbrella legislation to that effect. However, what is important in this whole process is the aspect of horse trading and the other aspect of should the elected representatives be bound by the pre-poll alliance or the mandate or the manifesto that they have given in order to make sure that the anti-defection law achieves its purpose. And lastly, I would like to say, whatever law it be, law basically stands for the legal analysis of wrongs, LAW. So our law, anti-defection, should achieve that purpose and fulfill the mandate.
I'm completely agree with what Kashmira has said. As many points and legal points are discussed over here, I just would like to give a small comment that as she already referred the word horse trading, I would like to, again, very popular terminology is there regarding Ayaram Gayaram. So anti-defection everybody is aware of, that is legal term, but for the common man it is Ayaram Gayaram. So how this word or how this phrase came, it was in the year 1967. It was a Haryana MLA, Gaya Lal. So what he did in 1967, he changed he changed to 3 parties in a same day. So to avoid such consequences further in Indian political story, so this Ayaram Gayaram phrase came into front, and then it was decided that India is in need of anti-defection law, and then the 10th schedule was added in 1985.
I'm really thankful to students for participating and really appreciate the views expressed by them and the remedial measures suggested by them. I think this brief discussion will help people who are viewing this particular channel to get to know, acquainted with the provisions of the anti-defection law and some few suggestions and the remedial measures that can make this law more meaningful and effective. Thank you.